Hello and welcome to the Freelancers Tea Break, the short and sweet podcast you can enjoy whilst you're making a cuppa. I'm your host, Emma Cossey, and this is the podcast for anyone who is already freelance or is thinking about going freelance. Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Freelancers Tea Break. I am approaching a very strange summer for me this year because this will be my son's, we're just in the last few weeks of my son at primary school, and in September he starts at secondary school, which is slightly mind-blowing for me. I feel like I've only recently been talking about him being born and juggling freelancing with a newborn, and now I have a nearly 11-year-old and it's bonkers. But it reminded me actually that tax-free childcare, which is something we have in the UK, which you can use if you're self-employed and you have children. It is a tool where you put in a certain amount of money and then the government will also add money to it. So for every £8 you pay into the account, the government will top it up by £2. Now, for me, that will run out, I think, in when he's 11. Although I need to double check that because if they have a disability, it actually runs until 16 and he is ADHD. So it might still apply, but I thought it was well worth reminding people in case they don't realise they can access that. If you're employed, you can get childcare vouchers. But for those of us who are self-employed, tax-free childcare can make a difference. I remember when my son was young, we went to nursery. It really, really helped when it was combined with the 30 free hours. For me, it kicked in, I think, at 3, but it's younger now. But being able to put some of that money aside for nursery and then having the 30 free hours, it did help a lot as a freelancer. But also what a lot of people don't realise is you can use tax-free childcare, that money towards some after-school clubs and some summer clubs. So I'm saying some because not everybody accepts it. So it's worth having a good look around, but a lot of them do, although it will contribute towards the costs. And childcare can be really difficult during the summer holidays. Actually, as a freelancer, it's one of the privileges that I have is that I can be a lot more flexible during the summer holidays. I don't often plan towards that. But I think it's incredibly hard as a parent or anyone who is caring for young people in their lives, because I know it can be grandparents, it could be aunties, uncles, everybody chipping in, or there are lots of other ways that we care for young people in society. And that's incredibly difficult if you are employed. So being self-employed actually makes it a bit easier to be flexible. In the past, through the summer holidays, I would often book my son into a lovely outdoors club twice a week. So that would give me time to work on my business then. But I thought it might be useful to share some of the other ways that have been helpful during the summer holidays in particular, because they're longer, to juggle children and work and things like that. And I was chatting to a friend this week actually, or this week at the time of recording, about how it is easier as they get older. So because my son's sort of nearly 11 now, he's much more kind of independent. He doesn't need me to be there all the time. More importantly, I don't need to be there in the same room as him at all times to make sure that, I don't know, toothpaste is spread on the walls or anything's been doodled in. He actually never did that, thankfully, but I have heard many a horror story. But I don't need to be there at all times. Sometimes he's gaming in his room with his friends. Sometimes he's in the dining room drawing something. A lot of the time right now, it's sorting through Pokemon cards and things like that. But also when you go out, it's easier at this age as well. I can go to a trampoline park and I can park myself up at one of the tables, grab myself a coffee, and I probably won't see him for an hour and a half if he's with a friend. And that's quite nice. It's quite nice that he's in a safe place and I kind of get that time to plug in my earphones because trampoline parks are loud, and just crack on with work. So it does get easier, but I very clearly remember how challenging it was when they were younger and you felt like you were trying to fit in things around naps and suddenly you were relying on an hour and a half nap and it would be 20 minutes and you'd spent 15 minutes of that 20 minutes trying to get them to get down And then you had no brain space left to do any work, and you were thinking, oh, I'll work in the evening, and no, because you're completely exhausted in the evening. And then you think, oh, maybe I'll be one of those people that wakes up at 5 a.m. and your alarm goes off at 5 a.m. and you're definitely not that person that wakes up at 5 a.m. unless you have to. Anyway, I remember all of that. I remember how much of a juggle it was. So I thought I'd share some of the things that helped a little bit. So that first thing was the one I've already covered, is tax-free childcare. It's really useful. It just takes off some of the pressure a little bit. So even if you're past the nursery age, carry on putting the money in, because it does help, and you can put it towards that. I'm very conscious. I don't want to be saying rely on your village, because having a village around you, especially if it's family based, is a privilege, and it's not always available to everybody. And I know some people have family around who can do lots and some don't. I'm very, very fortunate that we live near both sets of grandparents, and they are very wonderful about helping out. And they're usually sort of taken for a couple of days through the holidays and do days out, or it might be that I'll go over there and do a little bit of work. So that is wonderful, but I also acknowledge it is a privilege. I have both my sister and several lovely sister-in-laws who are able to help out occasionally as well. And I think especially my sister runs a business as well. So she runs a business called Chocoholics with her husband, and they've got 2 kids, my niece and nephew, who we're very close to. So it's really nice that we're kind of able to say now during the holidays, okay, do you think you could have the kids this Monday and I could have them this Friday? And it's not every week, but it definitely helps, especially she's very lucky that she lives right next to the business. So we can kind of go over there. It's a farm, so we can kind of run around. It's wonderful. Or I can take the kids for a day out. And I really enjoy that as well. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. And we both know we're very lucky to have that, because not everybody does. So family is definitely helpful. So yeah, there's 2 days a week where he often goes to outdoors club. He's about to age out of that, so I'm going to have to look at other options, I think. There's also swaps with friends. So I've got quite a lot of self-employed friends locally. And like, for example, this probably during the summer, Laura, who I record all my reels with, she'll come over with her kids, and her kids get on really well with my son. So they'll all play in the garden and we can record some reels together. So we'll get the work done. There's other friends who we've had childcare swaps with them. So they might have Oscar for the afternoon, and then there might be another afternoon we swap with that. So that's really, really helpful as well. I'm not the best at asking for that, actually, but generally it's because we're quite happy chilling at home as well. But as he gets older, I think that'll change a little bit. So swaps with friends makes a big difference as well. It is also worth looking at, especially if your kids are younger, if there are any great workspaces near you that do childcare as well. So I think it's called My Little Boardroom is one near me in Wokingham, and they are a hybrid of a nursery and a workspace, which I think is brilliant. I would have loved that if it would be. They've only opened in the last year or so, but if I'd had that when I was younger, it would have been amazing to be able to book in, know your kid is next door being looked after, but you can focus on your work. That would have been really amazing. So it might be worth looking and seeing if there's anyone that does that kind of thing, or maybe any pop-up situations. Obviously, there needs to be a lot of regulation in mind with childcare and things like that, but it might be worth looking at, because I do know that there are some workspaces popping up now which also offer childcare alongside it. I do also know some people who, if they're a member of the gym and it's like a big enough one, they'll have a crèche and you can drop the kids off for an hour or two, and then go sit in the working room or the cafe and deal with work then, which is really good actually if you have, I think, a meeting or anything like that just pops up. And obviously it also depends on if you have a partner or not. So if you have a partner around, then they are just as much a part of it. I'm very lucky with my son. If it's really quiet at work, my husband can take him in with them. They have a big TV there so he can set up with his Nintendo, and he loves playing with them and he loves chatting to them in the yard. And So that works really well, but that doesn't happen a lot, but it will happen occasionally. And often as well for us, my husband will probably step up more at the weekends and take over a lot more of the childcare while I'm doing the weeks. So, and obviously he's there in the evenings. So it is worth having that conversation about how you're going to balance it as well, because there is still a tendency for the woman to kind of take over and deal with all of it and kind of sacrifice the time on work. And actually that shouldn't be the case. You're a partnership. So there's quite a few ways there. So just a quick recap. Make sure you're looking at tax-free childcare if it applies. Have a look at, or have a chat with your friends and family, see if there's any way that they might be able to help, but also if it can be beneficiary, especially if you've got like friends with kids similar ages or family with kids, then you can kind of help both of each other out. So that can be really helpful. And have a look at childcare workspaces or workspaces with crèches and things like that, because that can be really useful in terms of being able to get the best of both worlds. But yes, it's definitely going to be an interesting transition now. And secondary school, I think I'll probably record some bits about that, because I'm suddenly not going to be having to do the school run in September. But also I'm not planning on booking lots in for September, because I think I'm going to need time for him to adjust and just to be there and focus on him really adjusting in. So that will be an interesting journey. If you have any tips on that journey as well, especially if your child is neurodivergent, I'm always open to hearing about them. I had some great tips on LinkedIn, but I would always welcome any more. So do feel free to come join me in the Discord, the Facebook group, or I'm on Instagram at Emma Cossey. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm Emma Cossey as well. I hope you have a wonderful freelance week.